Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to mention that yes, there has been something that has happened recently that has really affected these games, right back to the original, and at the time of recording, this is still an issue, but I'll get into that a bit later in the video. So, Borderlands is about to release a new game, and honestly, I was so hyped for this game, as I've been playing these games for so long now, and the Borderlands series is my favorite looter shooter game. So, when I said there was such little hype for this game, I was just thinking, how? And then I realized I haven't actually seen anything from any Borderlands game in a while. No content from the developers, not even videos from creators talking about it. Like, fuck, I've been seeing more shit from Destiny, and we all know how shit that game is. So when I realized that this game that was basically becoming a household name had just vanished from the conversation, I started to get so confused on what actually happened. Well, I think today is the day for you and I to go on a journey to find out together what the hell happened to the Borderlands series. But before we get started, I have to let you know that we have a creator code for this channel, and that is with Dubby. Now, do you want to game to the best of your abilities, or even hit the gym harder so you can get that new PB? Well, with Dubby, you can achieve this with all the amazing flavors, and even better, there is no jitters. How good is that? So you can use the code BLAZINGPhoenix at checkout for your 10% discount. The link will be in the description below. Now, just for this video, I won't be talking about Tales, as it doesn't really affect the main issues that are going on with this game, but I will be talking about the main games and Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So if we look back for Borderlands, I think the real golden era of this game would have to be around Borderlands 1 and the Borderlands 2 era, and these games were both fabulous games. Now, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I really feel like Borderlands 1 made the path so Borderlands 2 could shine, because Borderlands 2 has to be one of the best looter shooters to ever exist. So how did it get this way? Well, that's simple. And I really think it was all in the design of the game and the fact that it never took itself too seriously. This game was just a comedy fest from start to finish. Everything in the game was just so funny, from the random NPCs that you would just meet, like the guy who just wanted you to shoot him in the face, to everybody's favorite character, Claptrap. This game was meant to make you laugh, and that was the design of the whole game. And if you don't believe me, how many zany and wacky characters are there in this game? Just tell me, because God knows that I have better things to do with my day than to figure out how many characters in this game that are batshit insane. But because of this, it makes an amazing world experience that not only creates this beautiful atmosphere, but makes you want to keep coming back and just try to find everything that you can. And that's not even mentioning two of the best characters from this era. That's Moxie, and you little pervs know exactly why she's here and keeps coming back. And, of course, Handsome Jack, who really needs no introduction into why he is such an amazing character. But even without the characters, the bosses and the way you could farm for loot was so addictive in this game, even if it was tedious. And look, I bet if you were someone who wanted to find a way to capture as many kids as possible back in the day, it would have been way easier. Instead of putting fucking candy on your bed, you should have just put 94 sham. Kids would have come flocking to you like they were starving in the Great Depression. But just waiting to finally get that weapon and seeing it finally drop and being able to yell to your friends, I finally got the bitch and she's mine. It's just funny, you know? But not only that, the game had end content for days, with all the extra levels that you get from the end of the game using those OP levels, and the challenges that you did to make everything harder for better loot. It was just the right amount of fun that the frustration that you would go through every single time was actually worth it. Now, you're probably wondering why I haven't talked as much about Borderlands 1, and it's because it didn't do anything wrong, but it just wasn't as amazing as Borderlands 2, and there's nothing wrong with that. And of course, I didn't want to stick on this for too long, as you probably already know how amazing this game was. If you've watched any videos that have been dedicated to this game, that's probably why you're seeing this video right now. I've got a funny feeling I'm actually talking to the Borderlands community, and you already know how good Borderlands 2 was. Now it's time to actually kind of talk about where they kind of started to fall off. And after they mastered the art of making games like Borderlands 2, they really did fall off the tracks of their next game. And the next game that they made would be Borderlands the pre-sequel. So if you don't know what Borderlands the pre-sequel is, I wouldn't be shocked, as it really is one of those games just never gets talked about, but it had all the potential into world to be one of the best Borderlands games out there. Like, how could a game based on one of the best villains in gaming history turn out so bad? It's like being given a completed puzzle and putting the last piece in upside down before flipping the table out of frustration.
Yeet.
But it shocked me. This game looks so fun and just came after one of the greats in gaming. And you can even play as Claptrap, even after the game warns you 50 times not to do it. So, where did the game go wrong? Well, let's talk about the big issue of this game, and that's got to be the farming. Why did they remove farming? The whole game is centered around farming for the weapons that you want. Now, Borderlands 2, you could just farm bosses over and over again, as loot can be a rare chance of spawning, and you can get different enchantments or stats on your loot, so it's always different. Let's say you only get one shot at this. Well, if you don't get the item that you're looking for, your whole build is now stuffed. Let alone trying to get better loot at later game levels. Like, look, some of the bosses you might want to farm are at the early stages of the game. And if you can't respawn them, then you can't farm them to get the upgrades that you need. And yes, I do know that there was the grinder, but ew. So, since you could not farm bosses, they had to go and find a sub-boss that spawned in the volcano. What was really cool and would drop a really good rocket launcher, but this shit got really boring really quick. Now look, they did fix this, but the damage was already done just by this action alone. And it makes you think, why would you change a mechanic that was so fundamental for your game to succeed? But that cannot be everything, because if that was just it, yes, it would have hurt, but I don't think the game would have, died as quick as it kinda did. Well, let's talk about the difficulty scaling. Now, I'm not the type of person to bitch about the game being too hard, but in this case, what's the point of the game being hard if there's no reason for it to be hard in the first place? Like, I can't farm bosses at the start of the game, so then what's the payout for the game being hard? There's not going to be good loot, so why should I put all that time and effort to learn how to beat shit when there's nothing good at the end of the tunnel? Now, you can call me a bitch for this, but I'll just take it. It just never felt worth it to me.
You're a fucking disappointment.
But something that interests me the most about this game is what the community hated the most about this game. And that was it was the same shit with a new coat of paint. Now, I don't know what you expect, but for somebody who sees the name Borderlands in the game, I kind of expect a Borderlands game. Yes, it's on the same engine, and they really didn't add much in terms of gameplay. Like, yes, there was the oxygen stuff and the ice weapons, which would make a return in later games, and of course you had the glitch weapons, but most people just said it felt like a cheap money grab that was built on the same hype of Borderlands 2. But something weird happened next, and I don't know how I feel about it. So, all of the games that we've spoken about so far were basically on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 era of gaming. But when the new consoles came out, they made the Handsome Jack collection. Now, to me, this is like when the model at the bar asks you to have a threesome. This is fucking amazing, but you have to fuck her obese friend. This goes really quickly from amazing to, there's always a catch, isn't there? Now, this boosted the pre-sequel sales, as it showed people would still buy the game as long as it was bundled with Borderlands 2. But companies don't care about this, all they care about is the numbers. But look, I don't want to run down some sort of rabbit hole, so this might not even be true what I'm saying, but just take it with a grain of salt that they were doing this just to boost numbers. But look, why don't we move on to the next game, and the first proper game to be released on the next generations of console, and that was Borderlands 3. Now look, Borderlands 3 gets a lot of hate, but I really like Borderlands 3, and I think it's a great addition to the Borderlands series. But let's look at why this game got so much hate, because, well, let's be honest, that's the reason you guys are all here anyway. Let's start with the mayhem levels. And on launch, these things were a mess. Now, yes, a lot of these things have been fixed with them, but still, they were a huge issue on launch. Now, if you don't know what this was, it's the end game content like the OP levels from Borderlands 2. But you didn't have to complete any challenges to access these. You could just choose whichever one you wanted, what was kind of boring. But the main issue with this was the power scaling and the weapon drops that just would get worse from here. It didn't feel like you were actually getting anything good. And sometimes you'd be sitting there just shooting things and there'd be no damage, and you get one tap by some random enemy. Like, what? And this really derailed the community and the game as a whole, having a mass exodus effect with the community. Kinda like most recent Need for Speed game. But this did not kill off the game completely. Yes, there was a drop-off of around half of the player base from launch, but Gearbox did work hard to fix the issues with the Mayhem mode. Now, also the game was buggy as hell from launch, what really did not help out the gameplay at all. But in saying that, half of the Borderlands games is buggy, so you kind of have to live and die by the bugs in these games. But something that shocked me was when the game first came out, they made the same mistake that they made in the pre-sequels. They just never fucking learn, do they? And that was the lack of dedicated drops from bosses. And when there were, they were usually just those really rare enemies that you could find on the map. And let's be honest, it was harder to find the enemies than to find the weapons. And this really sucked. But there was one enemy that everybody farmed. And let's be honest, I bet I don't even have to say his name. But here it is, the good old Grave Ward. And even after they fixed the original issues, everyone would still farm him because he could drop upwards of 5 legendaries in nearly every fight. And with no immunity period like other bosses, it was just easy. And this felt very similar to the fight that they had with the volcano boss in the pre-sequel. So this just did not help the lifespan of the game at all. And since there were no level caps for ages, people just grind this boss until they got bored. And that was it. Like, yes, they did add more stuff and more DLC and actually gave the players stuff, but it was already too late. Like, what was the point of playing the game when all you had to do was just kill Grave Ward and get everything you wanted from him? Now, when they did add the extra content, it was fun, but why would anyone care? Like, yes, there were new drops, but no one really gave much of a shit now, did they? But look, I do want to talk about some of the cool features, and one of those is the mailing system they added to this game. That was awesome, where you could just send anything to your friends that you didn't want, so you could absolutely fill up their mailbox with random shit. But let's be honest, if you use this thing properly, it was an awesome mechanic. You could also even share money between all of your characters, and this was a really nice change, just made things easy to set up on second playthroughs. And there was a really cool Iridium gun that shot out weapons, and I honestly can't remember if that was in any of the other games, but come on, that was cool, right? We can talk positively about that run, right? Okay, look, so the game had a rocky start, but how was the story? If I liked the game so much, it must have had a good story, right? Well, not really. It was okay if you don't compare the villains of Handsome Jack to these two, but the game was just okay, and the villains that were so amazing in the last game just kind of fell off. But the story was at best okay. Not the greatest story ever, just kind of okay. The comedy was there, and that's what it's known for, but that's all it really had. Now, the game looked beautiful, and the art style was just amazing, like every other Borderlands game, and that's all I can really give it props for. I really liked it, and I stayed around with a bunch of my friends, and the game really did improve. But the launch of this game really did leave a sour taste in my mouth and many others. Now look, I know there are heaps of other things that I can talk about, but for the sake of this video not going on for too long, I'm gonna leave Borderlands 3 here. There were many other great features, but they're just not as important. Well, at least I believe they're not as important as the stuff we've already spoken about. Well, where did it go from here? Well, this funny little title called Tiny Tina's Wonderland. And the aesthetic of this game is absolutely amazing. Borderlands meets D&D, how freaking awesome is that? So why did no one really care about this game, including myself? Well, it was just more of the same shit. And I know that's a really boring answer. It's just like listening to a paraplegic complaining about how he can't walk anymore.
You're a two-wheeled monster!
But they did do things in this game that really made people stop caring after release. And here's a few of the things that they did. First of all, let's look at the nerfs. Now, let's be honest, every game up until this point has had nerfs, and I've left it out until here because there's a reason. We have spoken about the balancing and scaling, but there's a reason that they nerf things. Because if you can one-shot a boss like your Saitama after every single fight, the game will become incredibly boring. Now, Borderlands 2 did a really good job with this, and Borderlands 3, not so much, but both of these games, when their life cycles were done, the games were left in a very good state to play. And now when it comes to Wonderlands, I just feel like they nerfed the fun of the game. Now, yes, it has gotten better, but in my opinion, this was one of the worst culprits of just nerfing things that they really did not need to touch in the first place. Well, what else? They had really cool character ideas, especially for the D&D perspective, but once you beat the game, there was no true Vault Hunter mode like all the other games. So it really just felt like one single playthrough before just heading over to the Chaos Chamber, and if you know about the Chaos Chamber, you know about the Chaos Chamber. But hey, at least it's better than the DLCs. What? Wait a second. Let me check that. Oh, my bad. I mean the PLCs. Because yes, why don't we just change the name of DLCs to PLCs? Because I don't fucking know. Beats me. And the content in these was also just shit. Some of them would only be like 30 minutes long. And the story of this game was just shit. The one important death in the game was just retconned right at the end anyway, so why would you even care? Now, the melee weapons were cool, but this was supposed to be the Borderlands games, and it feels nothing like a Borderlands game, and honestly, I don't even want to talk about it for too much, but I do want to say one thing. They have confirmed that there will be a second game in the works, and they'll probably rush Borderlands 4 to get that out. So, this pile of shit of a game, and let me remind you as well, this game was buggy to all hell that made it almost impossible to play, will be returning with a sequel. Huzzah! And wow, that's a great way to look at the Borderlands. And if that was it, honestly, it would be a decent way to end it. Yes, it sucks that games are getting worse and have just become less soulless. At least that would have been the worst of it. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that there was some major issues, and this is now plaguing all of the Borderlands games, and it might even be affecting other games as well, but I'm just going to be focusing on the Borderlands series for this. This is a serious issue, and I'm actually not going to be using my over-energetic voice for this. And I'm definitely not going to be the first person to talk about this. It's the new terms and service that have been put out to all the main Borderlands games. Now look, I know not everybody's going to care about this, but I really think that you should care about this because on this channel, we do have a lot of fun talking about games and why they died, and looking back on games and if they should come back. I get to give you some facts and a lot of my opinions, and in my opinion, this is a disgusting use of power behind the company making this game. Now, I'm not sure who did it, whether it was 2K or Gearbox, but it is just a risk to all of our safety. And look, if you don't know what has happened, basically the best way I can look at this, they have turned all of the Borderlands games into spyware. And if you don't know what spyware is, it's basically malware, what should be raising concerns straight away. And look, I know people are going to be saying this is way too harsh, but when you start to look at the stuff that they're collecting, it really makes you think, why do they need that? And just from a quick search that I can find, they can get access to your contact information, including name, username, gamer tag, postal and email addresses, phone number, unique IDs, phone device IDs, platform IDs, gaming service IDs, advertising IDs, IDFA Android ID, and probably worst of all, your IP address. Depending on what you think's worse out of that list, but yeah. Now, why do they need all of this info? It beats me. Like, this is the type of stuff that no one needs to know but you. So why should this company collect all of this information? Let alone if they get hacked, then what? Could all of their information just be out to the open? All of this private information that can really affect us could just instantaneously go into the wrong hands. And is that really a risk that you want to take? I want to keep all my private information safe, and no, I'm not even sponsored by any VPNs or anything like that, but why would they need this? It just seems so dodgy to me. Like, what are you going to do with my postal address? It's a digital game. I'm not ordering anything to my house. This is the type of thing that makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I value my privacy a lot. It helps me to keep safe. But now if I play these games, I have to worry about them grabbing any sort of random information they can find about me. And that sucks because I really want to play these games and I really enjoy playing the Borderlands games. But I just don't feel safe to play them anymore. Now look, I know this isn't a major problem on console, it's mainly only the PCs that are going to have this issue. And if you want to play on Xbox or PlayStation, you should be fine and safe to play. But the real issue is still on these PCs, and I just recently became a PC player. And the way I found out about all these issues was I was just scrolling on Instagram and I got a reel telling me Borderlands 2 was free on Steam, and then I saw the negative reviews talking about it and I just had to go and have a look. So yeah, it's just not worth it on PC. And look, with all of this, it really just asks the questions about the next game. Like, is Borderlands 4 going to be worth it? Well, with all the terms and service bullshit, all I can say is I can't recommend it. Especially if you're on PC, I'd be staying away. Like, if you're on console, you'll probably be fine, but It's more just the principle of this. As a community, we should not reward this type of behavior. And if we do forgive them, even if they take this away and we just give them a forgiveness key, then it's going to show other companies that they can do this as well. And look, even if they do reverse it, at the time of me making this video, it's still up there and it's still going to be affecting people. And look, just going back on that forgiveness thing, again, if they do take this down, we really shouldn't forgive them, because if we do forgive them, again, other companies are going to be looking at it like we can do this. So to me, it's already too late, especially if they've already grabbed your information. But look, I also know that some countries also have laws to prevent this, but it still does not matter, and it should not have been something that we as the players should have to have worried about in the first place, especially when we spend full price on these games. And this is what really happened to the Borderlands games. They sold their integrity to market on the players and have put everyone who plays their games in a very dangerous position. And look, I know some people are going to really hate this video and are going to really disagree with me at this end part because they really don't give that much of a shit or just don't see it as such a big deal. And there will be others who just don't get to this part of the video and really don't know about the shit that's going on with the Borderlands games behind the scenes. And again, we are a small channel, so it does make sense that people don't always stay for that long. But if you did get to this point in the video, I really do appreciate you for sticking around, and I promise that we'll be back to our normal fun-loving videos for the next one. But I just thought that this was a bit important and needed more of a serious tone for this video. So I'll say thank you now for watching the video, and if you did enjoy the video, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, as it would really help us grow. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.